Our Earth is a living planet. 30% of our land is covered with forests, which is critical to keep biodiversity balance. But the forest cover has been shrinking. Forest resources directly support the livelihoods of 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. These forest resources are home to nearly 90% of the Earth's terrestrial organisms. Roughly 13 million hectares of forest, the size of Nicaragua, are converted to other land uses each year. With deforestation and the degradation of forests, high volumes of CO2 once stored in these forests are released. It's estimated that the forestry sector contributes to 1/5 of the total CO2 emission in the atmosphere, causing the climate to change. What causes forests to disappear? Expansion of agricultural land, human settlement, infrastructure development, demand for energy, and demand for timber. What can be done? If deforestation can be reduced, it will be possible to decrease loss of biodiversity, significantly reduce carbon emissions, and retain the livelihoods of people dependent on forests. This is precisely what the REDD+ initiative aims to achieve. REDD, reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation in developing countries. The plus stands for conservation, sustainable management of forests, and enhancement of forest carbon stocks, thereby reducing emissions. How does it work? Countries that are willing and able to reduce emissions from these 5 activities will be financially rewarded for doing so based on verifiable results. The success of REDD+ depends in part on whether national legal and policy frameworks and strategies ensure inclusion, transparency, and accountability. Forest-dependent communities, including indigenous peoples, fairly receive the REDD+ benefits. Donors and investors have confidence in the REDD+ mechanism. The risk of corruption is addressed throughout the REDD+ process. Corruption is commonly defined as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain, and it can be characterized as political or grand corruption, bureaucratic or petty corruption. The acts of corruption could also take various forms, such as bribery, fraud, nepotism, money laundering, etc. What are some of the risks of corruption in a REDD+ process? Project developers could bribe public officials to ensure that the land they own is allocated to or excluded from REDD+. There could be bribery or cronyism in the procurement of goods and services for REDD+. REDD+ revenues could be embezzled by interest groups or scooped away by corrupt individuals. How can corruption be prevented? Raise awareness about REDD+ and what corruption in REDD+ might look like. Assess and monitor corruption risks in REDD+. Promote transparency, for example, by publishing revenue from forest carbon sales. Promote accountability through ensuring effective participation of civil society and indigenous peoples in REDD+ processes. Monitor and provide oversight for the use of REDD+ related revenues by parliamentary committees, civil society organisations, media, etc. Ensuring success in REDD+, among other things, requires the coming together of practitioners from climate change and anti-corruption fields to devise an effective, transparent and accountable REDD+ mechanism. To learn more, visit www.un-red.org or www.anti-corruption.org.